G'day everybody, Max right here, and welcome to this special edition episode. And today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin halving. We're just 3 days away. For those of you who don't know, the Bitcoin halving is the most important thing that happens in Bitcoin. Every 4 years, it's like the Olympics, and it's the biggest trend setter in Bitcoin. It basically creates a 4-year, pretty predictable cycle that happens in Bitcoin. But it doesn't affect the price of Bitcoin the way most people think it does. It's a little bit different, and this year, I believe it's going to be a little bit different again, and then I'll explain why I think that and how I think it's going to be different coming up. But I said this is a special edition, and it is. So I've never done this before. I've never done paid promotion for any of my videos, but I've decided the timeliness of this one, and for a few other reasons, I'm going to go ahead and promote these videos and hopefully get a few extra eyeballs on this. So if you're brand new to the channel, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please consider clicking that subscribe button as we go along. If you resonate with how I'm teaching and what I'm teaching, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. If you are an existing subscriber, a few things you should know will be a little bit different about this one. Firstly, I'm just going to spend 2 minutes just to, a little bit of history on who I am and why I'm perhaps worth listening to, and this channel is worth subscribing to. And also, for the guys who are existing, if you could do me a big favor, go ahead in the comments, let people know why you think, if you think, they should subscribe to this channel. What's your favorite things that you learn here? Has it been profitable? Have you implemented it in your life? And have you actually made money with stuff that I have taught you? I'd love to hear that. That'd be great. So go ahead and leave those kinds of comments. And also, I'm going to give you guys a special prize or something at the end. I'll talk about that more at the end. So most of this video is going to be about the Bitcoin halving. We're going to talk all about that, along with some price predictions and things that are going to happen after the Bitcoin halving. But let me just take a minute to let you know a little bit about who I am. Born and raised in Australia, moved here about 13 years ago. The accent's getting pretty thin. Live in the US now. And yeah, just became an entrepreneur, self-made, very loving, wonderful family, but didn't have any money when I left home. Completely self-made entrepreneur, retired by the time I was 32. Then started investing for myself, passion for economics and history and Austrian economics and macro trends and all these kinds of things. Started investing for myself, was very successful at it. Came back out of retirement to launch a product teaching people how I invested and some things to understand about the economy that dictates how things work. My investment philosophy is I always want to swim with the current. I figured I didn't have to be a very good swimmer if I was swimming with the current. That means jumping from asset class to asset class when the big macro trends suggest you do so. And so it turns out I was a pretty good swimmer in addition to knowing where the currents were going, and done very well for myself. I no longer sell that product. Since COVID-19, this is what I've been predicting for years, obviously not COVID-19, but COVID-19 was the pin that pricked the financial bubble that I've been talking about. And this financial bubble is, it is just stupendous. Over the next few years, will be no such thing as mediocre. You will either get very, very poor very, very quickly, or get very, very rich very, very quickly. That is the only way it will be. The middle class is going to get absolutely destroyed. You either have the knowledge to get out of this and profit, or you don't, and you get slaughtered. And so I don't do the paid subscription anymore. I turned that off, and I've just really sort of dedicated myself to doing this for free. I don't really want to live in a world where the middle class gets annihilated. So I'm literally here just trying to help as many people as possible, protect the wealth that they have, and hopefully multiply it many times over. Let's keep that middle class as best we can. So that's the kind of thing I teach here on this channel. And if you like my teaching style, I love teaching. It's an absolute passion of mine. I homeschool my child, and I just love it. So please feel free to subscribe. We'd love to have you. Okay, Bitcoin halving. Let's do it. First of all, I'm going to talk about what the Bitcoin halving is. A lot of my regular subscribers will know all about that. So if you want, look in the description below. There'll be a timestamp where you can jump forward and just look past the description of what the Bitcoin halving is, what it actually, how it affects the price, how it affects the market, all those kinds of things. That's the kind of stuff the regular subscribers will be interested in. But let me go through the basics about what the Bitcoin halving is. If you do not know what Bitcoin is, the Bitcoin halving is, here it is. Just so you know a little bit about me on that topic, 2013, I wrote the highest rating book on Bitcoin in the Amazon store. Was that 2013? Yes, it was 2013. And so I've been around Bitcoin for a long time. I've seen all of the halvings actually that have happened, and it's a big deal. Like I said, I like the Olympics, every 4 years, and it really changes. It creates the whole Bitcoin cycle. So what is the Bitcoin halving? To understand the Bitcoin halving, you have to understand the mining process and what the miners do. So what a Bitcoin miner is somebody that turns on a computer and listens to the cloud for people sending transactions. If you have Bitcoin, you create a transaction. Send money from this account to that account, you sign it, you throw it into the cloud. There are a bunch of miners out there listening for these transactions floating around in the universe. They grab them all, bundle them up into what they call a block, package them up into a block, and in order to do that, they have to solve a math problem. It's literally a random chance math problem. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. You just test billions and billions of numbers per second. When the right number comes up, you go, hey, I found it. I found the needle in a haystack. That permits you to create a block, and you create a block, and you get what's called a reward, a block reward. At the very beginning of Bitcoin's enthusiasm, there were 0 Bitcoins in the world, and someone made a block. In fact, we know who it was. It was Satoshi Nakamoto. And the blockchain reward at that time was 50 Bitcoins. And the first 50 Bitcoins came into existence. Every 10 minutes or so, another block is changed. The miners are all listening, and they solve another block. Somebody else gets another blockchain reward, another 50 Bitcoins. We now have 2 blocks in the blockchain. Here's where that word comes from. And this is how it's gone on ever since. Every 10 minutes, the miners are listening, gather all the transactions, bundle them up in a block, look for the needle in a haystack. I found it. They get a blockchain reward, 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin, 50 Bitcoin. And that's how it was until the first Bitcoin halving. At that time, I think it happened in November of 2012, if my memory serves, the first halving takes place, and the Bitcoin reward for solving each block gets cut in half. It goes from 50 to 25 Bitcoin. Okay? 4 years, then the blockchain goes on and on and on for another 4 years. Miners solving that, looking for that needle in a haystack, solving the block, adding the block to the blockchain. All the transactions in history are within the blockchain. And what happens? 4 years later, this got chopped in half again, 12.5. And right now we are coming up to the next halving, which will take it down to 6.25 Bitcoins. So what that means is every 10 minutes, this is how Bitcoins are created. Now, for those of you who might have guessed ahead as to what that means in terms of Bitcoin creation, in the first 4 years, the Bitcoin supply chain went like that. There's like 50 Bitcoins added, 50 Bitcoins added, 50 Bitcoins added, 50 Bitcoins added, 50 Bitcoins added. We get to here and the blockchain reward gets chopped in half. What that means is this trajectory changes, goes like this for the next 4 years. 25 Bitcoin, 25 Bitcoin, 25 Bitcoin, 25 Bitcoin. 4 years later, it gets chopped in half. We get changes again, lowers the trajectory. 12.5, 12.5, 12.5, lowers the trajectory again now in about 3 days. Bitcoin halving goes here. Oh, that should be a less sharp angle, my apologies. And so on and so forth every 4 years. Basically what you can see is happening here, it approaches but never touches 21 million coins. You ever hear that phrase, there'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoins? This is why. This thing keeps on getting chopped half, 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 half. Does that for another 140 years until it doesn't anymore and it's just not worth doing. But this is just like fractions and fractions and fractions of Bitcoins. So if you understand about the geometric progression of what's happening here, 4 years after Bitcoin was created, 50% of all Bitcoins had already been mined and were already in existence. 8 years later, 75% of all Bitcoins had been mined and been created. 4 years after that, we get halfway between that, what is it, 82.5 or 87.5? 87.5, I think. That gets done, and so on and so forth. So right now we're coming up to the point where, the vast majority of Bitcoins have been created. And which one are we? So this was 50, this went to 25, 12.5, we're at this one here. And so in 3 days' time, we will know that I think it's 87, yeah? 87.5% of all Bitcoins will have been created in 3 days. That is what the blockchain, the block reward, which is the reward that miners get for doing the work of running the network, listening for the transactions, bundling them up, putting them on the blockchain, that reward gets halved. Happens every 4 years or so. Now, this entire schedule, including for the next 130 years, is all completely predetermined. We know when it's going to happen. We know all the things that we need to know. And as a result, the market has priced in a lot of this stuff. We know when things are going to happen. It's not a surprise. It's not a shock. So this is where most people think. This is the most important thing in Bitcoin. I think as we go along with each iteration, the market learns a little something about how we all react to this fact. Way back here, people underestimated big time the significance of the halving. This halving was, at the time of this halving, the first halving, the price of Bitcoin went from $11 to nearly $1,200 in the 12 months following. Okay? Big time change. Around this time, again, it was a little bit to a lesser degree, but again, just after the halving, a huge run up, and this time I think we're going to see something similar, but I'll show you how that's going to play out in a little bit. So that is the Bitcoin halving, how it works, why it works, and what it does. So let's now go, and now I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go through the history of the Bitcoin pricing charts, the history of the price of Bitcoin, and how it relates to the halving. Because although it's predetermined, how the market's understood, how the market reacted to what is coming up and what has just passed when it comes to halvings, has had a cycle to it and changes. But actually, before I get to that, let me just impress upon you this point. Let's imagine, like, the Fed interest rates were normal, like let's say they were 5%. And on one day, they cut them to 2.5%. What would that do? That would create gigantic bubbles in real estate, gigantic bubbles in the stock market. It just completely changes everything. The amount of people borrowing money would skyrocket overnight. That is why this is like the Olympics in Bitcoin. It totally changes the market and the dynamics of the market completely. It creates a 4-year cycle. The difference with the Fed, we don't know when they're going to cut rates and when they're not. So it's like whatever, you just don't know. With Bitcoin, we know when this halving is going to happen, we know when the one after is going to happen, we know when the one after is going to happen. So the market can react. So the question is, how do they react? When do they react? Do they front run it? Do they post run it? What do they do? Right? And that's what we're going to look at right now. So now I'm going to look at I'm just going to draw up the price history of our Bitcoin. And I'm going to do it on a logarithmic chart. So, well, no, I won't. I'll do it on a linear one, but I'll underestimate it so we can see the bubbles, okay? So Bitcoin's invented in 2009. There is a little bubble in 2000. Well, it's a massive bubble. It goes from like 2 cents to $30 and then back down to $1. It's a big bubble, okay? But anyway, there's no halving around there, not a big deal. We trickle along for a little while and come up to about $10, okay? It's at $10, $11, something like that, in November of 2012. And then the following year, we do this big run up to $1,200. Okay, it pops, comes down here in this big cup shape, comes down to 250, comes back up here, but for all the way, effectively, to 20,000. I'll cut that down, 20K. Sorry, my black one was running short and I knew it would. So some colorblind people who don't like me using blue, but my apologies, my black one went out. So this goes all the way up to about $20,000 and now comes back down in this normally a big giant cup. I'll finish this off in a minute, and because it changed a little bit, and I'll finish the graph off in a little bit. But this is the history. Let me go back and put the halvings in. So there was one halving here at this $12, and this halving occurred somewhere around. No, actually it was $1,000. So maybe it was a little bit to the right. A little bit to the right. It was about $1,000 when that halving happened. Okay, there's a very obviously loose part of the graph. Now, some things that I want you, some historical context that I want you to understand. At the point of the halving, it was never an all-time high. So here, at the time of this halving, the all-time high was $30 2 years earlier. And then at the time of the halving, it was $10. At the time of this halving, it was around about 1K from memory. The all-time high was $1,200 higher, so it was not as high. Here, this year, we're coming up to the halving, where 3 days before the halving, and the price of Bitcoin is about 10K, and the previous high was 20K. At the time of the halving, we have not yet reached an all-time high. It's not the all-time high. Critically important to understand. In the 12 to 24 months after the halving, in both of these instances, you see a massive run-up. because it totally changes the amount of Bitcoin coming into production. Pardon me. The block reward gets chopped in half. The amount of money chasing that Bitcoin might go up. If it just stays the same, the price of Bitcoin will go up because the amount of inflation has cut. And this, in terms of inflation, is a very, very strange concept. It's the money supply of Bitcoin is being inflated at a decreasing rate. Okay, Bitcoins are never being taken away unless people lose their private keys. That does happen. There's always going to be Bitcoins being created, but at a decreasing rate. So it's inflation at a decreasing rate. Very tricky. But so the rate of inflation decreases, and that totally changes everything. Inflation is just a massive topic. I talk about it a lot on this channel, specifically at the Fed and here. And it's very, very important that you understand. It's one of those key things that changes when you should jump from one wealth class to another. We talked about swimming with the current. When do you jump from real estate to stocks to gold to Bitcoin to just sitting on cash? The biggest determinant on that is what are they doing at the Fed? How much money are they printing? Those kinds of things. Bitcoin has the same cycles. This changes how much money is being printed. That's what it does. Okay, so step one, Bitcoin is never ever at an all-time high at the halving. Okay, what happens is this dynamic changes and the whole market structure changes, like the interest rates being cut from 5% to 2.5% at the Fed overnight. It's all predetermined, so a lot of things are priced in before, some things priced in later, but till now, the market always underestimates the significance of the halving. And what happens is in the following 12 months, the price just starts getting bid up, bid up, bid up. We go into a crazy bubble, and both of these things were absolutely bubbles, and then they crash. And then at some point, usually about a year out from the halving again, people are like, oh man, the halving's coming up, the halving's coming up. Enough smart money understands the significance of the halving. They start accumulating Bitcoins at this point, starts the price rise a little bit. After the halving and the dynamics actually change, then the price goes really crazy. Again, the day of halving, the month of halving, the quarter of the halving usually doesn't necessarily have a big impact on the price. It's not a significant event in terms of timeliness, but it's everything to do with these cycles. See, what I want to draw your kind of attention to is these kind of big scoops centered on the halving. Big scoop centered on the halving. In fact, usually it's it's on the upwards slide of the halving, right? That's what always happened. Last 2 years it's happened. This year, in the halving before, I noticed and predicted, by the way, go back and look at this channel, I've been predicting Bitcoin prices for quite a while. This is one of the techniques I use. I've just had some insane accuracy on my predictions. I have a very famous video, it's about 12 months old, I'll put it in the link in the description, and it predicted that we're going to have a pretty sideways year. At the time I made the video, the price of Bitcoin was something like $4,000. I said, look, it's going to be this kind of a year, right? We're going to go up a little bit. It's not going to be super exciting. It's going to go sideways. We're going to go from like 4,000. I predicted 15,500 in May of this year. Right now we're at 10,000, still climbing. Maybe before the end of the month we'll get there. In the world of Bitcoin, if you're in the right order of magnitude, you've done well. Bitcoin jumps around 50% a day regularly. It's not like the stock market. You got to be within a couple dollars. If you're in the right order of magnitude, you're pretty close. So anyway, I called 15 a year ago. I said, look, it's going to go up a little bit. Not gigantically, it's going to like double, triple. We're going to get to something like 15,500. That was my price prediction. The month is not over. Who knows? I might hit the nail on the head if we get to 15,500 before the month is over. I'll tell you what my 2021 prediction was, which I made in the video 12 months ago in just a moment. So, where was I? Yeah. Oh yeah. This scooping action here. I want you to know this is a 4-year cycle. You'll see there's a peak here. You'll see there's a peak here. We have another halving here, and what I'm predicting is this is another scoop happening here. But this cycle is a little bit different. So let me finish explaining. This cycle was different than that one because what I predicted here was that people would understand, they would learn from this halving, and they would front run the halving to a greater degree. And that is exactly what happened. You'll see this was $10 compared to $30 all-time high, and this was $1,000 to $1,200 all-time high. They were very, very close. It doesn't represent on the graph, that's my bad drawing. But as I correctly predicted, the front running was significantly higher here on this halving. I did predict that again, but something different happened again in this halving. So I'm going to rub all this out and I'm going to zoom in on just the last 4 years, okay? So this year, we've run up to $20,000. We came all the way down. Now, very normal. It's called a cup, by the way, and there's usually a cup and handle. It's a trading term, which has happened in previous years, but I won't go into that. We got down here and we got to the bottom, and then I myself and a number of the gurus, whatever the Bitcoin gurus have been talking about this stuff for years. We explained that this was going to happen, and Bitcoin did something different. It left its cup trajectory. I'm going to dot it in. That's the rest of the cup trajectory. And people have learned from the last 2 halvings, and the price of Bitcoin went ballistic. Went up to like $14,000 in like 2 months after the bottom. And it blew its biscuit too early. Then what happened is Bitcoin went this sideways nonsense all the way down here, all the way back to the planned trajectory of the cup. You're going to look at a Bitcoin chart, you'll see it. It jumps out at you now that I've drawn your attention to it, this cup. And then we went back down quite low. I mean, it was there for a day, I think. It went down to a low of 3,300. Actually went down to just as low as this went. So my drawing's bad. This actually went all the way back down to here. So it came all the way back down to here, shot back up, and now we've kind of rejoined the cup. So this was an instance of the market learning what was happening, front running to such a degree that it blew its biscuit, came back to reality and rejoined the cup of where it was going to happen. Now, there's a lot of Bitcoin predictions going around. I mentioned the cup and handle. Let me just get this here somewhere. The cup and handle, actually I'll do it up here first. The cup and handle is this cup. When it reaches the previous all-time high, it usually does a handle, cup and handle, before it goes to the moon and makes that new all-time high. That's the cup and handle formation that traders talk about. It has done that in previous years. So right now you're seeing a lot of videos on YouTube. Just after the halving, there's this handle situation, Bitcoin to drop by 30%. I'm going to predict something a little bit different here. I don't think it's going to happen this year because the market has learned from previous instances. And I don't think this handle formation is going to play out big time for this reason. Now, this is a very different year because we're in a COVID-19 year. This is the year the longest expansion in the history of the world economy, or the history of the United States economy, popped, and all bets are off the issue. There's a lot of things different. But my prediction is that the normal reason for the cup and handle and all the reason that the things that happened last year, because this front running kind of threw out my predictions this year a little bit, again, I think this front running and a deeper understanding of the cycle is going to change this handle situation as well. And I don't think we're going to see it this year for that reason. However, we might see a huge dip in Bitcoin prices if we see another. What we're going to see soon here is phase 2. So, February this year, you got the COVID-19, the pin that pricked the bubble, but it was actually a shotgun. You see that huge drop down in the stock market from like 29,000 down to 18,000. There was a third of the stock market wiped out. We are now in this rally. By the way, this rally is your last chance to get out. In the next couple of, if you just walk away from the stock market right now, you're only 25% down. In 2 years, you will be a hero. A hero. If you get away with only losing 25%, you are a genius right now. What will happen over the next 2 years? There will be phase 2 of this, and we're going to see a long grinding fall down. So when that happens, over time, you will see people losing faith in those investment classes as they go through a massive deleveraging, which they are desperately in need of. And you will see things like gold, silver, and Bitcoin come out of these things very, very nicely. But they probably will be part of the carnage in the first wave of it. So just so you know, that is something to look for. We may see the Bitcoin price get smashed here a little bit. We also may not, depending on the speed with which this happens and the speed with which the Fed responds. You may see those other asset classes actually kind of hold their own. Time will tell on that one. We'll have to wait and see. I've got a whole bunch of other videos talking about that. You can check that in the history. One last thing I wanted to get up here on the price. Oh yeah, so I talked about that video I made a year ago, and that in that video I had a price prediction for May of this year and May of 2021. I just want to finish off the deal. Exactly true to form, I believe we are going to go on this. COVID-19 changes everything. It might look a little different because it doesn't, let me say this, the value of the dollars may change so significantly that maybe the price of Bitcoin doesn't look like it's at an all-time high. But if you look at what Bitcoin can buy compared to Big Macs or something like that, or houses or whatever, you will see Bitcoin at an all-time high. Because the Fed is going to do so much printing over the next year, it might completely change the numerical value of what a Bitcoin is worth. But if the Bitcoin is worth 100,000 or it's worth 2,000, and either way that buys one house, that's what I'm saying. But because of the Fed's mucking around with the money supply, the fiat money supply, the US dollar supply, so much, it's impossible to make price predictions. You have to make your predictions in terms of other asset classes. So that's what knowing which asset class to jump back and forth for is very, very important. So, but with that in mind, let me just give you what I believe is going to happen. With the nature of the halving, you have the halving. It's from the previous bubble pop, you come down here in this big cup, people understand the halving is coming, they start to front run it. It happens, it changes the dynamics, and you go up to a new all-time high. Now, my original prediction back in last year for May of 2021, and it's just that sometime in 2021, Bitcoin will hit $100,000. About a month ago, I made a video and I updated that, and things have changed. Because of what's happened with COVID-19, etc., and the money printing and the worldwide economy shutdown, etc., etc., what I believe is most likely to happen is you will see a black swan event in the banking industry. I believe it is now more likely than not to happen in the next 12 months. What that means is banks shut down for days, whatever, we'd weather that storm. But the big one is a bail-in. If you are not familiar with what a bail-in is, there was test run in Cyprus, 2013. If you may recall, one Saturday morning, the two biggest banks in Cyprus decided that they were bankrupt. For 3 weeks, no access to cash. No ATMs are dead. You can't walk into a branch, nothing. Finally, after 3 weeks, they make a deal with the European Union, ECB, I should say. And what they agree is that all the depositors, everybody who owns something in the bank, over some minimum, I think it was the insured minimum, which was like 200,000 euros or something, every dollar over that gets chopped in half. So if you had $1 million in the bank one day, you come back from that, it's down to like 600,000 euros, something like that. And when you've just had your bank account chopped in half, what is the first thing you want to do? Get your money the hell out of the bank. You weren't allowed to touch it. You can only pull money out at a rate of 150 euros a day. You can have $10 million sitting in the bank, got chopped in half to 5 million, and you can only pull out 150 euros a day. That's a bail-in. I believe we are now more likely than not to see that within the next 12, 18 months. If we do, that is a major black swan on the banking situation, and you will see Bitcoin go ballistic, and I believe you will see over $500,000 Bitcoins here in the next 12 to 18 months. If we see a bail-in a major Western country, it's most likely to happen in Europe, I believe. It's going to be France, Italy, Spain, Germany, one of those guys. One of those guys is going to have a banking crisis, if not all of them together, and you will see major bail-ins, I believe. But time will tell on that. So just so you guys know, an update on that prediction, and no bail-in, no 500,000. I want to be clear on that. But I believe the bail-in is now more likely than not. So I've updated that upbringing. No bail-in, $100,000 Bitcoin is my target for mid to late 2021. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you know a really clear understanding of what the Bitcoin halving is. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed my teaching, I love teaching this stuff, please subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications, because there's a lot of truth being told on this channel and I do get censored. So hit that bell and make sure you let YouTube know that you want to get all my videos, and you want to be notified about that. If you're an existing user, please do me that big favor. Go ahead and leave in the comments if you think they should subscribe, if new people should subscribe to this channel. Why? What's your favorite thing about this channel? Why do you tune in? Why do you watch all the videos? Why do you enjoy it so much? What are they going to learn? Have you implemented it? And what I'm going to do, I realize it's going to take your time, I realize it's going to take your energy, and I appreciate you guys going to that trouble and doing this for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my favorite one, I'll pin it to the top of the comments, and what I'll do is, if you are not a Success Council member, I'm going to go ahead and give you free membership to Success Council members, the whole library of content I've created over the last 10 years. And if you are a member, I'm going to go ahead and refund your purchase. So guys, I really appreciate that. Please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Take care.